This film Learnin short is brought to you by Artlist.
Like a turd in the wind.
I have absolutely no idea what to do for this week's episode. Doug, you got any ideas?
Sure. Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah, I thought as much. What am I gonna do?
I have an idea. How about, say, a Venom effect?
That's not a bad idea. Hey guys, welcome to Film Learnin, the show dedicated to learn you some filmmaking and learn you good. And today we're going back to the Venom world for another Venom effect. This time we're taking on the Venom Symbiote effect from Venom. Do you think I've said Venom enough times? I think so. Now since you watched the start of this video, I think you have a pretty good idea of what we're doing. So in order to complete this effect, you just need to shoot yourself interacting with Venom in some way. How you do that, I'll leave up to you. In one of my example shots, it's a simple medium shot of Venom with me out of focus, and in the second shot, it's just him coming out of my back and me talking to him directly. You'll also need to head to filmlearnin.com/downloads and download the Venom Symbiote Effects Pack, which pretty much just includes the Venom model. So what I essentially did here is just take Hero Golem 3D's Venom model, cut the head off him, and put some stuff on the back. Now I'm making this model free for download because I think it gives you a really good preview of Hero Golem's model and what you can do with the facial expressions. And if you'd like to purchase the full model, you can click that link down below and help support him. Now gang, just like with our previous Venom transformation effect, you are going to need the full version of Cinema 4D in order to operate this thing because it has rigging and Cinema 4D Lite does not support rigging. So just make sure you have the full version of Cinema 4D. Now, you got all that because this is a big one. Let's get to work, shall we? Okay gang, so here we are in After Effects, but we won't be here for long. Basically, the only thing we're doing here is getting our background plate all rendered out as an image sequence so we can import that into Cinema 4D. You can see I have two comps here, one of the hero shot and one where I'm interacting with Venom and he's coming out of my back. So if you've watched our previous Venom effect tutorial, you probably already know that and the card is above, so it's all very simple. You get your shot set up in a comp, just like mine here, add it to the render queue, choose PNG sequence from the lossless menu, and render that bad boy out. Right, that's done. Onward to cinema! Okay, so here we are in Cinema 4D, so let's get started. You can see I've opened up my Venom project file, and first things first, I'm going to head down to my background material, this one here, and I'll import our newly minted background layer PNG sequence by double clicking the material, heading to color, and from there we'll replace that current layer with my own. Done. Now if your shot is moving, we need to head to animation and hit calculate, and that will load the rest of the frames in the sequence. Now what this is also going to do is show you how many frames your Cinema 4D project file needs to be. So take note of this number and we'll close that out. Now, remember that number from all that while ago? Well, we're going to type that right here and limit our project file to those frames so that way we don't animate needlessly. Now before we go on to the next step, I'm just going to quickly turn off the display of the sky material just so I can follow up with what I'm going to do next, which is Orient the Camera, which is as simple as just checking off scene by camera. Done. Okay, our next step is to orient the camera to suit our shot, and this is as easy as grabbing the camera right here and moving it around until you're happy. Now gang, I will once again mention that this model isn't perfect by any means, and to keep render times as low as I can, I only added smaller tendrils to one side of his face. So if you need to, flip the background shot in After Effects beforehand so that you can orient your camera properly. You can always flip it back when you get back to After Effects for compositing. Done with the camera. Nice. Now the lighting. This is where making notes of where your lighting is in your actual footage is paramount, guys. I had two lights on when I shot this, so basically I placed them exactly where they were when I shot. If I switch to the multi-view mode, you can see I have a key light here. I used an area light in Cinema 4D, It's as close to the light that I've got as possible, and I've also used an Omni light here as an accent light, just to further enhance those little hot spots that is on Venom's face and along the tail thing. As I said in the previous Venom episode, this setup should be based on your lighting conditions entirely. Don't worry about what I've done in mine. Okay, so last step before we start animating is adding your HDRI image to this sky object right here. This is important as it gives Venom more accurate lighting and reflections for the scene. You can clearly see in this still that both the arcade machine, which is blue to the left here, and the green screen on the other side of the room are showing up on Venom's skin. The interactive element here helps integrate him into the shot so much more. For tips on getting this type of image as well, check out Production Crate's recent video in the card above. They did a great breakdown. So, once you've imported that file, make sure you use the rotation tool to orient the sky to match your shot. This is made much easier by turning off the background file in the render window, like so. Done. Okay, so we've replaced our background image, we've added our HDRI, and we've got our lights and camera into place. Time to animate, dang it! Okay, so the question becomes, what do we animate first? The face or the body? Well, in this example, I'm gonna animate Venom opening his mouth all sinister-like, because frankly doing dialogue took ages and this is a tutorial, so best to keep things basic. There's really no wrong or right way to get started, but let's start with the body. In order to move him around, all we need to do is click on Venom 2. We'll grab the position controls from up here and we can move him around, and you can see that the tendrils follow him. It's also very laggy. That's because we have a bunch of displacer effects on the tendrils that is creating a whole bunch of subdivision animation. So in order to animate this, we need to turn those off. To do that, let's open up the tendril hierarchy and shut off the cloth and displacer effects by clicking on the tick. Just repeat that 3 times. Done. Now if you want to speed up your workflow even more, you can also disable the subdivision surface on the Venom head right here. You don't have to do this if your computer's running smoothly though. Right, so let's say Venom slowly moves forward as his jaw opens. I'm going to grab the Venom 2 null, record a keyframe right here. I'm going to head to the end of the project and just move him forward. That's pretty good. We'll also record another keyframe by clicking this right here. So our basic movement is done. Now I want to open that jaw. So I'll find the jaw right here in the rigging hierarchy, right here. Once again, head to the start of the project, record a keyframe, head to the end, grab the rotation tool from the menu, and I'm just going to rotate that jaw down, and that's good, and I'll record a new keyframe. We now have Venom moving forward and opening his jaw. It's a pretty basic animation, of course, but it gives you a good idea of how to animate him. We'll then follow that up with the upper jaw, record our initial keyframe, and then follow that up by opening that upper jaw just a little bit more. Now gang, it's important to note you can add as many keyframes as you like and make the animation as complex as you like. I'm demonstrating a very basic animation here, and you can see that my final animation had a whole bunch more jaw movement, but the fundamentals are the same. You open the jaw, add a keyframe, and you close the jaw and add another keyframe. So now that the bones of the animation is there, we can refine it a little. So say I want a little bit more head movement. Well, I can go to this point, the head rig, add a keyframe, and maybe adjust it to tilt a little bit as he's moving forward, and then add another. So you might want to animate the head a little bit to, say, match your actor's eye line. You can see on my final animation that I do a subtle little head tilt here, and I even add a little bit of bobbing of the head as he begins to speak. And on the second shot, you can see here that when I look at camera and say, that's not a bad idea, he actually nods in agreement. Now, these were accomplished by using the head rig. The only thing I will mention about this model and the head rig is that you really can't go nuts and push it too far. I only worked on this model for a very limited amount of time just to get it functional, so if you turn or tilt the head too far, this model is going to break. So try and go for subtle, gang. Okay, so our movement animation is done. Now for the fun part, the post-morph facial animation. Now gang, Hero Golem did a great job with the post-morph rig on this model. All I merely did is cut Venom's head off from the rest of his body, and I added this wormy bit at the end. So still, full credit goes to him, and if you want to animate the full Venom model, I highly recommend buying it in the link below and checking out his animation video. Right, if you click on the Venom V2 now, you'll see all of these sliders. Now this can be a bit overwhelming, but each of these controls a different area of Venom's face. You can see there's a whole bunch for different aspects of his eyes, the most expressive part of his face. So let's push the slider up on wide eyes. See the result? Cool, huh? So say you want to do something a little bit more sinister. How about a squint? Nice. Now all of these sliders are able to be keyframe animated as well. You can see in my breakdown video here just how many of these sliders I had working together in the final shot. You really have the ability here to get as detailed as you like, gang, and I really do encourage you to explore every single slider and really just use as many as you can to craft a cool performance. Now for the sake of the tutorial, I'll start at, say, squinting our eyes at 100%. I'll add a keyframe, head to the end, and then I'm just going to zero that out and add yet another keyframe. I'll then head to wide eyes, add a 0 keyframe at the start, head to the end, and then I'm going to bring those eyes wide up. Now just by animating those two sliders, we already have something cool. The last one I might do for this animation example is have the tongue come out a little using this slider right here. There we go. So after a few minutes here, we've got our complete animation. Like I said, pretty simple, but it gives you an idea how to make this yourself. Now, if you're planning on having Venom speak like I did in my example, a really good idea is to shoot yourself speaking these lines as reference so you have something to look at. Just do your best not to move your lips, as Venom doesn't really have them. So once you're happy with your animation and you've previewed it a bunch of times, it is time to turn on all those displacement effects and the subdivision effects. All you're looking for is for that red cross to become a green tick and you're all good. Now when you're done, it should look like this. Now additionally, it's gonna chug in preview now. Alrighty, it's time to render. Now I have my render settings set up using the physical render, as honestly it's given me the best results after a bunch of testing, but feel free to play around here, gang. Just be prepared to wait because this 96 frame shot took a little over 3 hours for my PC to render. Now, having said that guys, we've got a bunch of stuff that's being rendered at once. We have shadows from 2 lights, we have depth of field, a whole bunch of reflections happening, and all this fluid sim, and considering all that, that's really not that big of a render time. Now for the second shot, guys, I followed the exact same steps, except for using these tendril rig points to reposition Venom's goo trail into a better position. Now, these 3 tendril points can also be animated if you want. Now gang, some tips before we head back into After Effects, and this is a big one, make sure you save your work constantly and back it up with say a couple of proxies. And render your work as an image sequence instead of a movie file. This is just in case, say, your render stuffs up or the power cuts off, which it did to me 7 times while I made this episode. And if that happens, you won't have to start again. You'll only have to render the frames that you had left in the project file. Right, let's head back to After Effects and finish this off. Okay, we're back in After Effects. I've imported my animation example from the start of the episode, and you can see the image sequence right here. So let's drag and drop that into the comp on top.
Now, as I mentioned, I only used those little tendrils on one side, so I had to flip my background. So now I have to flip my Venom model back so it's oriented right in the comp, so I'll just do that really quickly. Done. Now guys, I originally shot this plate on a tripod, so it was a static shot. Then in After Effects, I added a scale animation and a position animation. So now the camera slowly zooms in and pans right and up to me or my actor. And since I did this in After Effects, I can now easily parent my Venom layer to the background plate and bam, my Venom layer is now tracked to the shot. Now the next step is to add some natural motion blur to our Venom animation. As always, I am using Real Smart Motion Blur because I paid for it and it was expensive. But you can use CC Force Motion Blur or Pixel Motion Blur if you don't have it. They do the job just fine. From there, all we need to do is color correct Venom to match the footage. So I'm going to head up here to Magic Bullet. I'm going to grab Colorista 4 from Red Giant. The easiest way to integrate something as dark as Venom is to match the darkest black in your shot. So after bringing up the shadows, playing with the temperature, and a few more tweaks, this is the end result. If I switch it on and off, you can see the difference is pretty dramatic from where we started, but it now looks like it's in the shot. Now the last thing I did in this particular shot was to duplicate it, remove all the effects from the bottom layer like so. I then headed to Effect, Perspective and grabbed Drop Shadow. I then checked on Shadow Only, and then I adjusted the softness, the direction, and the distance until I was happy. Once again guys, this is a subtle little interactive effect in your shot that helps sell the symbiote as being a part of your scene. If we check out a preview, that shot is done. Now I didn't add any slime hanging off Venom's mouth in this shot, as it actually looked a little weird this time around. I also studied the scene where Eddie and Venom are talking, and he doesn't drool, like not even once. So I figured I'd stay true to that, and it just so happens that it also saved me some production time, so win-win. Now, on to the second shot. So all the steps are exactly the same, save for one. All we need to do is do a little roto work on your actor here, and cut out a piece of the shirt. So if I solo that, you can see I have this bit of shirt tracked in Mocha, and then I just placed it on top of my Venom layer. So now the shirt is obscuring the end of Venom, and it looks like he's coming out of my back. Just like in the movie. It's really that simple, and pretty cool. Now I did add a couple more little subtle effects guys. The fact that Venom's at the forefront of this shot means that I added a little bit of camera lens blur to him, but really that's just down to personal preference. Whether you add some lens blur to him or not, totally up to you. And with that tidbit of information gang, that my friends, is another effect done.
Add up all those steps and you get something like this.
What am I gonna do?
I have an idea. How about, say, a Venom effect?
That's not a bad idea.
So gang, that is my take on the Venom Symbiote effect from the movie Venom. I promise I'm going to stop saying Venom, or I did it again. As you can see, we're really just using the fundamentals of animation to create a cool effect, and it really just depends on how complex you want to make that animation to make it as believable as possible. It's up to you guys. But for now guys, that's all I got for you. I had a great time making this episode. These Venom episodes are actually a lot of fun to make, apart from those constant power outages, which made me want to rip the hair out of my head, which, you know, kind of a moot point. But before we close this one out guys, let's hear a little bit about our sponsor, Artlist. As you guys know, it is super easy and fun to deal with copyright issues with music on YouTube. No, it isn't. But with Artlist, you don't have any of those issues. Every single song, and I mean the thousands of songs that are on their database, are 100% royalty free, and you get the license for them forever. And as I mentioned like 5 seconds ago, they have thousands and thousands of songs on their database that cover every single genre that you could ever want for your videos or short films. I've been using Artlist for well over a year and a half now on short film projects, film learning episodes, VFX breakdowns, basically anywhere where I need a really cool song. Navigating their website to find exactly what I need is very easy, and say I'm in the middle of a project and I think, oh, I need a song, I can jump on Artlist, grab that song, download it immediately, jump back into my edit without losing any production time. So if you are interested in checking out Artlist and their amazing song library, click that link below and you'll get 2 months free thanks to Film Learnin. I hope you check it out, and back to you, Grant. So I hope you did enjoy the episode and the effect, and if you did, please smash that like button, guys. I really do appreciate it, and it does help out. And hey, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button below and turn that notification bell on so you don't miss a single Film Learnin episode. We've got more Venom effects coming up, and if you do have a request, leave it down below because I read every single comment. I've got 2 episodes right over here that are Venom related, as well as my social media crap there if you want to follow me on all those for the behind the scenes and, you know, just general musings. I've also got my Patreon there if you want to help support the channel, or you can support it directly on YouTube with a membership by clicking that join button below. But until I see you again, guys, keep learning!